Hello and welcome to what?
The
Word Podcast.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to What's the Word Podcast.
Indeed. Hello.
You may have seen
Aloha.
the little blip at the start. You know, that's live for you. That's live to you,
Hey.
whatever you want to say. But it's just the way it is. But if you are here, if you're listening live with us right now on Sunday night, 6th of March at 6:02, say hello in the
GMT
comments.
time.
Yeah, GMT should specify that. Yeah, could be
international
a
friends.
time elsewhere, but let us know. Say hello in the comments. We like
Please
to
do.
see who's here.
Let
see
us
who's
know how
watching.
are you doing. Do you know what I mean? Let us know how
Yeah.
you're doing.
Let us know how you're
We're
doing. That'd
interested.
be great. And if you are sort of listening later on, maybe you're listening sort of on Facebook, YouTube, all that good stuff, or maybe you listen on Spotify or whatever else. Let us know. Leave us a review. What you thought of the podcast. Any questions you might have. Any queries, criticisms, maybe, or just let us know how you are. Do you know what I mean? I'll take anything. I'll take anything. There's no such thing as like bad publicity. So that's the saying, isn't it? I don't know.
Anyway. There's no such thing as bad publicity. Is the saying.
Yeah. But it's obviously good to see some people here already in the comments. Interaction's good. We like interaction because interaction helps get it out there, helps the algorithm sort of push it forward and take it to new heights. So great comments. If
and
you can
it gives us, you know what I mean? We like to interact with people, so we're not just, on our own chatting. I mean, we have chats like this on our own anyway, but obviously it's cooler to have it with other people.
Yeah, of course, yeah. Subscribe, like, all that good stuff. And as well as that, write down, maybe sort of, if you've got any topic suggestions, please do write them down. We're not just asking because we know what to say or we don't want to talk about or whatever else. But obviously we want to talk about what you want to talk about, and we want to help inform and speak into certain situations, certain things that are going on in the world. Like we've had some suggestions already. Some of them are really good. Some of them are really, really hard. One of them is really, really hard. I wouldn't even know
what's the really, really hard one.
It was the critical race theory one.
Oh yeah.
It just requires a lot of research. So anyway, we want to be able to sort of speak into things that you want to hear about, you want to learn about, or you want to know more about, or whatever. Let us know, because we'd love to sort of talk about that. But anyway, we'll start how we always do. Warner, this week, how has it been? What's been going on?
This week has been like a 9.
That's a big week for you. That's a big number.
It's been a very good week for me. Started off well. Monday helped Camila move into their new place, and it's a very nice place, and I think it'll do well for them and their daughter, who is coming any moment, really. And then we went down to Cardiff Monday evening.
Nice.
And surprised Mercy's mum because she wanted us to go down for Pancake Day, and we were like, oh no, we can't do it. But then we were like, oh, we'll just surprise her. Which was hilarious because we opened the door and she was like, hello. It was so good. And then we were there like a day and a half. Then we went to Stratford because Mercy got us tickets for my birthday, which was in January, to go see a play. So we saw that and it was incredible. It was like this Afro-futuristic take on Much Ado About Nothing, which was hilarious. And also just like really engaging. And there was like a VIP Q&A thing afterwards, which was very good. And then the next day we were coming home. And generally what we always do is if we're coming from down south, we swing by Leicester. Yeah. Because we've got a bunch of close friends and stuff. So we went and saw some of our friends there that we've not seen in a long time. Nice. Too long, really. Then we came back home, and then when was it? And then obviously we had midweek group, and it was great.
Yeah, it was good.
I had a lot of fun again. And then me and you went to go see the Batman at midnight.
Yeah.
And then in the morning, I was kindly driven to Leeds by my dad to go get our new car.
Wow.
So it's been a lot of things going on this week.
It's been a busy week.
And then obviously today, I don't know if today still counts as this week, but I'm counting it as this week.
Yeah.
Today, the meeting was great. God was there. God spoke. There were big boy testimonies. Not that, there's little boy testimonies, but you know what I mean. And specifically Marilyn, who I've been, I work relatively closely with her, or frequently. And so I know what she's going through. And to hear her bring a testimony, I was like, come on, do you know what I mean? Yeah. And then because of that, someone else then asked to be prayed for. And like, that's what it is. Do you know what I mean? Someone else's testimony encourages someone else to say, hey, do you know what? If you did it for them, if you did it before, he'll do it again. Do you know what I mean? Again. So it's been a good week, mate. It's been a good week.
A lot of mileage overall this week.
A lot of stuff. Yeah. A lot of actual mileage as well.
Yeah. Wow. Fair play. My week's not really been as busy, to be honest. It's been quite, as you guys know, the past couple of weeks, I've been off work because I've finished one job, started a new job. And this is this next week's going to be my last week of like nothing, freedom, until I'm back in the workplace. Which I'm excited.
By the way, if someone listening needs a job, just let us know and we'll pray for you, because Eamon's job that he has now is like a crazy blessing, which just like came out of nowhere, and he had favor through the whole process. And it's what he likes to do, and it's in a Christian organization. And then we heard 2 testimonies today in the meeting of someone who got a job, and the job that they have is paying them $10K more per year than the job that they used to have. Yeah, right. $10K. Hey, that's a lot of money. Do you know what I mean? That's almost an extra $1,000 a month coming in. And then Mercy also gave her testimony of how she dropped down a day from one of her jobs because there were just a lot of things that were being juggled. Yeah. And even though the thought is if you go down a day, you lose money, she got a pay rise. So
sick.
You know what I mean? Like, God does things that God wants to do. So if you need, whether you need a job, you need a promotion, maybe you're looking at your finances thinking, God, something's not adding up. The way the cash flow situation is, I need help. It could be a new job. It could be, favor. I know of people who had like whole swathes of debt just disappear off the system of the people who they owed the money to. They were like, well, we can't see any record of you having debt with us. So you don't, what that means is you don't have debt. Like that can happen. Or someone just gifts you money. That happened to us with our house deposit. We just randomly got $10K, and I thought it was a mistake. I was like, this needs to be verified before anything gets touched. And it wasn't a mistake. And so, do you know what I mean? God does what God does. Do you know what I mean? God does what God does.
So this is my last week before going back to work, which should be fun. But I mean, it's been a decent little week. Do you know what I mean? Like this morning, I played keys. I've not played keys on a Sunday probably since before the pandemic. Like that's how long it's been.
Yeah, 100%.
And it was nice. It was nice to be back. My fingers were hurting because the strain. Because I haven't played in a long time for that long as well. But it was good. I enjoyed it. It was all good. The message Ezekiel brought on the resurrection.
Oh, it's amazing.
It was unreal, honestly.
It was sick.
I wrote like 3 pages of notes. Like it was probably one of the best sermons I've probably ever heard. It's a big claim, and I'll stand by it. So good job, Ezekiel. And
I'm definitely going to listen back to it because there's like, there's so many things that it by instance like affects. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, like, when you think about the importance of baptism,
like
as he said, like, that's so different. But also then when you look at like your body is a temple, that takes on an added dimension, because your body, the body now, I mean, you like Jesus had the nail prints in his hand. Do you know what I mean? So like, I just think there's so much in that foundation of resurrection of the dead that we're like, we've barely scratched the surface of like how it all like impacted everything.
Yeah, and it's one of those things like when I was like, okay, resurrection. When he's like, obviously when he was just sort of doing the introduction, so I was like, I don't know. I was like, oh, I wonder where he's going to go with this. And then when he started going into it, I was like, this is everywhere. Like I realized,
yeah, literally everywhere.
I was like, how have I not clocked on to this for so long?
Yeah,
because all these verses just kept coming into mind while we were sort of talking about it, and I was like, oh my gosh, like it's literally just slap bang there in your face all the time. It's such a central key theme. And I was just like, wow, I didn't even, really good. Really good. Yeah, we should do it on the podcast one day. We should get Zeke on to talk about it.
Yes, we should definitely bring him on and do it.
Yeah.
In a more discussion.
Yeah. But yeah, as well as that, obviously, you know, Batman. We got to just say a word on Batman before we move on. I mean, listen, I just want to say this, guys. I know some of you out there may be like, Batman, superhero movie, not interested. But this is not a typical superhero movie. This is not
just a superhero movie.
It's essentially like, it's a thriller, you know. You just hooked into your seat, just sort of watching Batman solve this case. And it was just so well crafted. It was so well shot.
I agree.
About it was really good, and it's not. And as I said, it's not a superhero film where it's all cheesy and nice and like, oh, the big bad guy, and you know, the superhero's like down on his knees and he's about to finish and give up, and then boom, he comes back and then wins. I'm telling you, it was unreal. It's too long. No, Camila, I'm sorry, mate.
So they've got some dissenting views.
We got. It's too long, because if you can't see, obviously you're not listening live. Camila's basically said it.
But here's the thing: me and Eamon like films that are long. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Lord of the Rings extended editions, where the minimum runtime is 3.5 hours. The longest one gets to about 4 and a bit.
Yeah,
like those, I can do that in one sitting.
Yeah, definitely,
and be fine. So I will say, if you're someone who like a 2-hour, 2.5 hour movie is long for you, it's a long film. You know what I mean? So,
but it's worth. I feel like if you took like a couple of sections out, I'm not really sure. I'm not sure it'd be the same film. I think that the runtime's justified. It's not just like put loads of filler is put into it. Do you know what I mean? Like some films, you just kind of watching, like you're just filling it here. I feel like it was fully justified that there was. Yeah, it's a class film. I think just go watch it. If you're not into superhero movies or anything like that, still go watch it, because I think you'll definitely, if you enjoy that kind of thriller type, sort of Zodiac killer kind of vibe film, do you know what I mean? Go for it. I think it's definitely worth it. It's definitely worth it.
For me, it's probably the most accurate representation of Batman, on like who Batman actually is, like what his actual vibe is like. That is obviously, there's different incarnations in the comics of Batman, but the general thread of what Batman's like, it was that. I mean, detective, figuring things out. Some stuff goes wrong, and then he's like, "What's going on?" And do you know what I mean? He manages to figure it out. It's just great. And you know, I did like 6-7 hours traveling, something like that, in like that time frame before seeing it. Obviously, it started at midnight. And so I was very tired when I saw it, but I still loved it. Do you know what I mean? So if you imagine being half asleep and still loving a movie, that's how I found it. So.
Yeah, so it's certified, not all the way, certified, solid, certified.
What's the word certified?
Certified. Fine. What's the word? Anyway, time-wise.
Right, let's crack on. It's 15 minutes in. Let's get going. So, if you don't know, today we're looking at Ruth. And I was saying last week, Ruth is in my top 3 Bible characters, people who lived and were recorded in the Bible. And I said Jesus is number 1, and then it's it's a battle between Paul and Ruth.
Yeah,
with Ruth possibly second. That's how highly I rate Ruth. And like, if you don't know who Ruth is, you might have read her name in a genealogy somewhere in the Bible. She just pops up and then is gone basically. And obviously she's got a book in the Bible, but her book is only 4 chapters long, so she can sometimes be overlooked. You know what I mean? Like, not a lot of people will be like, oh, let me read Ruth today. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And you don't often hear a lot of preachers that are around Ruth. But I think if you look at her, it's incredible. And I think it's the only, actually maybe Esther doesn't have it either. It's one of the only books in the Bible where God isn't seen to have like actively intervened. Do you know what I mean? But you see working in the whole thing. Anyway, so we're going to do a bit of setting the scene first before we actually get into it, because what you need to know is that Ruth was a Moabite. And basically, the Moabites were descendants of Abraham's family line. Now, not Abraham himself, but like Abraham's extended family line. Do you know what I mean? So there's like a cousin removed, whatever the saying is, of like Abraham's line. And so there is some relation between them and God's people in the lineage. But you get to a point where they've gone from just being one family to being a people, which is how you see a lot of that developing in the Bibles. You get one family. It's like in 500 years' time, you get a bunch of people that have married into being Shebembers and blah, 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 and you get Shebembites. So it's a bit like that. So she was a Moabite. And basically, while the people of Israel were trying to get to the promised land, the Moabites were supposed to help them get there, basically. They're supposed to help them cross something. And they were like, no, I'm not going to let you through. We're not going to let you through. You can go the long way around. And so they got cursed for that. God was like, nah, that's pretty scummy, guys. So this is some of the stuff. We can't go through everything, but this is some of the stuff that God says about the Moabites, okay? He says, make him drunk because he magnified himself against the Lord, so that Moab shall wallow in his vomit, and he too shall be held in derision. Was not Israel a derision to you? Was he found among thieves, that whenever you spoke of him, you wagged your head? Leave the cities and dwell in the rock, O inhabitants of Moab. Be like the dove that nests in the side of the mouth of a gorge. We have heard of the pride of Moab. He is very proud of his loftiness, his pride, his arrogance, and the haughtiness of his heart. So that's what Moab, the people of Moab, were like. They weren't great people. Do you know what I mean? And them rejecting helping Israel was just like the outward reflection of how horrible they were. And they did some other things anyway. They worshipped idols, etc., etc. So the Moabites were basically one of Israel's most consistent enemies. There was a lot of beef between them, bunch of fighting. The king of Moab different kings of Moab were always doing different things where when the 3 kings ally against some Israel, the king of Moab is involved in that bad alliance. So like if you were a Moabite, you were not to have anything to do with the people of God. Absolutely nothing. No Moabites allowed. Do you know what I mean? Like that was one of their like public enemies number 1. So you have Ruth. You have Naomi and her husband who have left Israel because of a famine. So they've left. And they're trying to get food. And in this place, they end up going to Moab, and their sons find wives. So their sons get married. And then while they're in Moab, Naomi's son Naomi's husband dies, and her 2 sons die. So all she has left is her 2 daughters-in-law, who are both Moabites. Yeah. Both the enemies of Israel.
Makes sense.
And so then Naomi's like, she hears that the famine's not as bad in Israel. They've got more food. So she thinks, right, I'm going to go back now. And obviously she's pretty depressed because she's lost her husband and her 2 sons, which, especially because of the role that women had in that culture. Basically, if you didn't have a husband and you were past the age of what they would think is marrying age, like you didn't have a lot of rights left to you, and it was just tough. It was a tough life. So she was like, my life is ruined. We don't even have any land. Like, the best thing I can do is at least try and go back home and get some food. So she tells her daughters-in-law, hey, do you know what? You've been kind, but I've got nothing for you. Do you know what I mean? Like, there's no point in you coming with me because I can't support you myself. I don't have the resources. And it's not like you can wait, 21 years for me to have more sons that you can marry. And even if you wanted to do that, the odds of me having children at this age are slim to none. She was like, please just leave. And so then this is what she says. Ruth 1:9-10. The Lord grant that you may find rest, each of you in the house of her husband. Then she kissed them, and they lifted their voices and wept. Then they said to her, no, we will return with you to your people. So both of them were like, we don't want to leave you. We don't want to just leave you on your own. We're going to come with you. And then we have this in verse 6. So what happens is Naomi keeps telling them, no, you need to go. I've got nothing for you. So her other daughter-in-law ends up going. What is the name? I can't even remember the name of her daughter-in-law, but that's anyway. If someone in the comments can remember without me having to look at the scripture, the whole thing, let me know. I think it might be Orpah or something like that. Anyway, so she's gone, and Ruth's still there, and Naomi's still saying to Ruth, just go, follow her. Do you know what I mean? I've got nothing for you. This is what Ruth says. Do not urge me to leave you or to return from following you. For where you go, I will go, and where you lodge, I will lodge. Your people shall be my people, and your God will be my God. Where you die, I will die, and there I will be buried. May the Lord do so to me, and more also, if anything but death parts me from you. And when Naomi saw that she was determined to go with her, she said no more. And so this is like, yes, Orpah, got it right. Yeah, good memory there. So this is really like the first thing that we see Ruth doing. And for me, this is just like, this is incredible. Do you know what I mean? Like, Ruth was aware of the relationship between Moabites and Israelites. You know what I mean? It was just like we're aware of what's happening in the world right now. The countries that we're related with. And she's also just seen her sister-in-law go. Do you know what I mean? Like, Orpah and Ruth were the same. They both said, we don't want to leave you. We want to stay with you. But eventually Orpah said, right, fine, I'm going to go. And Ruth was just like, I'm not going nowhere. You can say what you're going to say, but I'm not leaving. I'm not leaving. As Leo says in The Wolf of Wall Street. And then this is what she says. Is that where you go, I'll go. Where you stay, I'll stay. And it is what it says in different translations. Your people shall be my people, and your God will be my God. So what she's saying there is that she no longer views herself as part of a Moabite. You know what I mean? She no longer sees herself as that, because in her mind, she married into Naomi's family. And so she is committed to Naomi because Naomi is family. and therefore she will assimilate to whatever she has to assimilate. She'll do whatever she needs to do in Naomi's culture, and whatever God that Naomi serves, she will serve that God as if it was her own, because he will become her own. She was just going to be completely committed to Naomi, even though there was zero reward. Do you know what I mean? Like there was what they were both going back to was literally nothing, possibly worse than nothing, because you know what I mean, there was just nothing for them. They couldn't claim anything themselves. They were completely dependent on other people. And this is the first thing for me that blows me away about Ruth, is that because you know, Ruth also lost her husband. So Naomi had it bad because she lost her 2 sons and a husband. But Ruth also lost her husband, and she's also like, where's my future? Maybe not as extreme as Naomi, but like that's a lot to go through, and for you to still say, like, I don't know. I think that's something that is such a hard thing to do. That in your worst situation, you'll prefer someone else over yourself. Because I'm sure if she just went back, she could have remarried, you know. But Ruth was like, I'm persistent, I'm committed. She had to tell Naomi like more than once, I'm not going anywhere. Naomi was like, please leave. I'm not going anywhere. And I was like, please leave. I've got no benefit for you. I'm not going anywhere. Like that on its own is just like, that's prime stuff. Do you know what I mean? What do you think about that, Eamon?
Well, I think it's really interesting because obviously, you know, that's, you know, Moab and that sort of place and everything like that is going back is kind of the easier option. It's the what you were saying, like, you know, was like, I've got nothing for you. Like, you may as well just leave me. You know what I mean? I'll just sort of go and do my own thing, remarry, you can do this, that, and the other. But it was like this understanding of you know, covenant, of relationships, of life together, whatever, and the sacrifice that she took to sort of say, do you know what, all this that I know, that I've grown up in, all this my comfortable space, the people that I know, friends, family, whatever it may be, I'm gonna sacrifice that to go with you and to do what you do, and your God will be my God, and I'll do what, like, that is just like that sacrifice and trusting in her to kind of just go, do you know what, it doesn't look nice and it doesn't look comfortable, but I'm willing to do it. Like, I don't know, it's mad. It's mad when you think about it. And if the roles were reversed, if I was in that situation, it's one of those things where, like, would you do the same thing? Would I have that same mentality, or would I just kind of just be like Orpah and just go, do you know what, I'll just go back to what I know. I'll just go back to it's an easier option, and everything like that. And ultimately, we see how. I mean, Orpah, I don't even think you don't even hear from her again. Do you know what I mean? That's
why I wanted to remember her name, because that's the only moment that we hear her name again. Like, we don't see Orpah's name again. Don't know what happened to Orpah. Don't know her family line, whatever. But Ruth, we'll see. Like, obviously, I mentioned she's part of the genealogy. Like, Ruth is a significant member in the life of, like, God's people. And not because she did anything that we would think is, like, you know, not the things that people would say is glamorous. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
She didn't kill 1,000 men. She didn't see people raised from the dead. You know, she didn't make oil keep coming. She didn't prophesy all these different things. Like, that's not the life that Ruth led. But what she did was, God thought so highly that he honored her. And, like, do you know what I mean? We're talking about Ruth today in 2022. And she was just like, I'm just going to be committed. You know, like, I'm here. I'm not going anywhere. And I'm going to do whatever I can do to support you. So let's just look at that quick before I go to the next one. So Ruth 2, 11, 12. So Ruth and Naomi go back. Naomi's like, I've got nothing for you. So Ruth says, okay, I'm just going to go to a field, and I'm going to start picking up whatever grain is left after people have gone through the field. So there wasn't a lot of stuff left. It wouldn't have been very high quality grain, but it was some food that she could provide for her mother-in-law. Do you know what I mean? So she was like, I'll do whatever I can do to support my family. And sometimes that's life. Sometimes we're in a situation where the season we're in, all we can do is all we can do. Do you know what I mean? Like, we can't do anything else. We can just, this tiny thing that I can do, it's the only thing I have, but I'll do it. Do you know what I mean? And this is what happens. This is where the turning point starts, really. But Boaz answered her, all that you have done for your mother-in-law since the death of your husband has been fully told to me. The Lord repay you for what you have done, and a full reward be given you by the Lord, the God of Israel, under whose wings you have come to take refuge. So here we have Ruth is now being recognized for her commitment. She's been in the field, she's been grafting, and Boaz is the one who owns the field. And he saw her and was thinking, who's this random person like at the back of my field? What's going on? He asked someone and they were like, oh, her mother-in-law is Naomi. And, you know, they've gone through a lot of bad stuff. She's just trying to get something. And so what happened is, before this, Boaz actually allowed her to stop to pick grain with everyone else, instead of just having to be at the back. Bearing in mind, well, we'll get onto this. But do you know what I mean? Like, she went from having no opportunities, and she just said, I'm gonna do what I can. Let me go and pick like the last parts of the things that's left. And because of her commitment, she was allowed to pick with everyone else. Like that. Like, as a Moabite, an enemy of Israel, being allowed to do that on its own was like crazy favor. And then Boaz, who is a loose relative, blesses her then because of that. And so then here's the next part that we look at before we get to the end is Ruth 2. Verse 2 and also verse 21. So Ruth the Moabite said to Naomi, let me go to the field and glean among the ears of grain, etc., etc., etc. Verse 21, and Ruth the Moabite said, besides, he said to me, you shall keep close by my young men until they have finished all my harvest, etc., etc. So during all this time, Ruth is still a Moabite. Like, Ruth has gone to the land of her enemies, and is helping her mother-in-law, who is also from the land of her enemies, and her mother-in-law can't do anything, so she decides, let me go to a random field of my enemies. I'm behind enemy lines. I'm gonna go to a field and I'm just gonna pick some stuff. And like, she's doing all of this as Ruth the Moabite, but she didn't let that identity of her being a Moabite restrict what she would do. Do you know what I mean? Like, Ruth went beyond what her stated identity was as a Moabite. Like, the connotations that people would have had of her being a Moabite, she was like, I'm not gonna live to that identity. I'm choosing to live in a way that is honoring and committed. I'm gonna honor this God that I'm just getting to know. Like, he's not mine. I didn't grow up with this God, but like, I'm all in. And I think that's such a massive challenge for us, is of sometimes, like, the identity that we grow up with can sometimes not be a great identity depending on what's happened in life. Or we can be in situations where our identity is looked down upon, or what other people would put our identity as. Do you know what I mean? So other people would have looked at Ruth and said, you're a Moabite. Do you know what I mean? Oh, who's Ruth? Oh yeah, Ruth the Moabite, Naomi's daughter-in-law. And she pushed past that identity and said, no, there's more for me. And I think that's great, because sometimes identity can be like a crippling thing. We can think
100%.
because I see myself as this, or other people see me as this, I can't move out of that box. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. And it's one of those things, like, I think, especially when you like grow up in church and then like if you go away, you go off to like a Bible school or something like that, you come back, like often people can see you as, you're Juan, you're Ezekiel's son, or I'm Eamon, I'm Johanna's son, or that person that was in youth, that person, grew up in the church and seen you as a kid and everything like that. And that's the mentality that a lot of people can sort of have with you, especially if you sort of go in to like go into a church you've grown up in or whatever else. The people who've been there a long time can just see you like that, and it's about moving past that. I was actually talking to someone about this the other day. And they were sort of struggling with this a little bit or something. They were just like, why aren't people taking me seriously or whatever else? And I was just like, ultimately you've got to move past that vision of what everyone else says about you and that box you're putting yourself in and everybody else in, because God has something for you individually, specifically, not just as somebody's son or someone's daughter. Yeah, it's really good, that, mate.
Yeah, and I love it. Do you know what I mean? Like, her solution was, I'm gonna keep going. Like, that's not a glamorous lifestyle to just
of course,
keep going. Like, I feel like if Ruth had been in modern times, the advice for her would have been like, Ruth, you need to shake things up. Ruth, you need to go and be independent. Ruth, you need to do your own thing. Do you know what I mean? Like, Ruth, you need to do da-da-da-da-da. All these Instagram, like, motivational things, which some of them are great, but, just the human solution, the default human solution wasn't what Ruth did. Like, what she did was extraordinary. It was ordinary, but it was extraordinary. Do you know what I mean? And it takes a lot. Sometimes that's a lifelong thing to be able to move beyond the identity that you have of yourself and do the thing that, like, do the simple things that God presents you an opportunity to do.
Yeah, of course.
So, anyway, we'll get on because I could literally do Ruth for ages, but we don't have that time. Anyway, so then we have Ruth. Ruth 4. I think I forgot to put this one on, so I'll just read it myself. Ruth 4. So basically, what's happened now is that in the Israelite culture, if someone died, there would be like appointed people who could basically, like, who would marry the widow to make sure that the widow was provided for, and to also make sure that no one stole the land of the person who died, and to make sure that the person who died, their inheritance continued. Do you know what I mean? And so these people were called kinsman redeemers. So when you see that phrase kinsman redeemer, that's what it means. It means someone who was designated as this person, or these group of people. Any one of them could marry the widow and make sure that she's taken care of, looked after, no one takes advantage of her, she doesn't become destitute, make sure the land is secured for the person who passed on, and so this is also a really good book to learn about what it means that, God, Jesus is our kinsman redeemer, all that. Anyway, all that does. There's so much stuff. So Boaz, basically, Naomi gives Ruth advice of how to introduce herself properly to Boaz. She does it. Boaz realizes that he is actually their family's kinsman redeemer, as well as this other person. And so he says, okay, I'll go ask this other person because he's the first in line. And if he says no, then I'll do it. Long story short, he becomes their kinsman redeemer, and he marries Ruth, and obviously then redeems the land as well that they have. So now they're able to support themselves, etc. And so then Ruth 4 verse 13. So Ruth took Boaz took Ruth, and she became his wife. When he made love to her, the Lord enabled her to conceive, and she gave birth to a son. The women said to Naomi, "Praise be to the Lord, who this day has not left you without a guardian redeemer. May he become famous throughout Israel. He will renew your life and sustain you in your old age. For your daughter-in-law, who loves you and who is better to you than 7 sons, has given birth." Then Naomi took the child in her arms and cared for him. The women living there said, "Naomi has a son," and they named him Obed. He was the father of Jesse, the father of David. So,
not bad.
Like Ruth, that's where Ruth sits in the lineage. Ruth is what's the great Ruth is the great grandmother of King David, and is in the direct line of Jesus. Not just you know what I mean? Not just in the extended family. Jesus was a direct descendant of Ruth. And because of Ruth's persistence and commitment, like she was blessed, she was taken care of. She got a husband when she'd lost one, and she married someone very wealthy. She married someone with security, with stability, someone who could make sure that she wasn't taken advantage of, wasn't destitute. And the same for her mother-in-law. And also her mother-in-law gained a child. Do you know what I mean? Like, because in the culture there, it wasn't how it is in the West, where, do you know what I mean? It's like, it's like it's a bit more. The family dynamic was different, basically. And so because it was Ruth's child, Naomi also looked after the child, which you get that in different cultures as well, where like a lot of people in the family, women in the family, are involved in the looking after the child, etc., etc. And so Naomi, where she thought, "I've lost all my sons," there was a son that she could now look after, like it was her own child, as well as now having provision, having their family land secured. So Ruth wasn't just blessed for like herself. Ruth being blessed was also Naomi being blessed. And the only reason that blessing happened was through just being committed, like being true to someone and saying, "I'm not going anywhere. I don't know what's going to happen. I don't have any ulterior motives. And you know, if you give me advice, I'm going to do it." That's the story of, like, basically what would happen is Naomi would say something, Ruth would do it. Naomi would say something, Ruth would do it. Boaz said something, Ruth did it. And it's incredible the turnaround that happened. Like, Ruth was solid, like, just in her own life. It was incredible. She went from being an enemy to being part of God's people, and not just part of God's people. She was the direct ancestor of Jesus. Like, that's how much God honored her. Was that throughout history we would know Ruth as, you know, an ancestor of Jesus and David. You know what I mean? So that's like the end of Ruth, but obviously there's a lot more there. But it's just, for me, it's the perfect. I think it shows like what it's not like the fantastical side of living life with God. But I think it shows that, like, God's not here for the fantastical. Do you know what I mean? Like, God just honors, like, so some people feel like they're called to be a mum or a dad. And for them, they're just like, "I'm just going to do the best at that as I can." Like, that's enough. Do you know what I mean? And sometimes they can get looked down on, and like, all you want to do is be a parent, or like a job that's not glamorous, and people are like, you don't want to lead a church, all you want to do is like clean the floor really well. Like, what's that about? Or like whatever it is. Do you know what I mean? Or like, "Oh, you want to adopt children? Like, isn't that weird that you don't want to have children of your own?" Like, there's so many different, whatever it is. But I think Ruth is such an encouraging story of, like, life might not be all these glamorous things that we want it to happen, but we can just be committed and persistent. And like, incredible things can happen as a result. And our legacy and influence goes way beyond, that time frame that we are here for. So that is why Ruth is in my top echelon. Do you know what I mean?
Wow. Yeah, I think it's just great though. Like, thinking about it, like what you were saying earlier, when you're setting the scene, Moab is like the Moabites cursed. They're bad people, permanently social distanced. You know what I mean? Get away from me. You can't, like, it's just chalk and cheese almost. And she goes from that place, that position, and just by, as you're saying, something so simple, something so non-glamorous, or whatever wording you're going to put in that, to being in the lineage of Jesus, like, and the blessing that she gets, and how God honors her. It's just mad. It is mad. It is mad. And it shows just that those little sort of, that care is radical, you know what I mean? And commitment and
exactly.
covenant. It's worth something, It's not just about, do you have a microphone? Do you have a platform, or this, that, and the other? It's just those little things can be so powerful in what God wants to do and will do in your life. That's mega, that.
Yeah. And sometimes it means like being annoying. Do you know what I mean? Like, I'm sure Naomi got annoyed with Ruth. Like, she was probably like, I'm depressed, Ruth. Like, can you, like, okay, fine. Like, you're going to stay with me. Fine. Like, whatever. And then Ruth's like, all right, I'm going to go and do some work. Naomi's like, whatever. Like, it takes a while before Naomi buys into having Ruth with her. And so sometimes, like, there might be people that we need to care for, who we need to annoy a bit. Do you know what I mean? Like, they might be like, oh, leave me alone. I'm a lost cause. And they might be a lost cause in that moment, but it might be our role to say, I'm not going anywhere. I'm still here. And, we don't know what God can do through that. We would never, never know.
Yeah.
And then,
Excellent.
if we had more time, you could go into like what it looks like for, obedience and, listening to elders and all this. Oh, there's a lot in Ruth. So I would encourage you, study Ruth, because it's only 4 chapters.
Yeah, 4 chapters. It'll take you what, like 10 minutes to read?
15 minutes. Yeah, it depends on.
Minutes.
Oh, by the way, I would like to know this, because we've got a few people watching live. How do people read? Because I was taught to read with an inner monologue. So I was taught, read the words, and as you're reading it, do it as if you're speaking. So my reading speed is my talking speed. That's how I read. Whereas apparently that's abnormal, because most people just look at words and prose. Like, that's scary to me, that there's like, so Mercy does it the opposite way to me, where she'll just, do you know what I mean? I call it a superpower, because we've done a few like reading challenges, and she finishes way before me and processed all the information the same. So I'm interested to know, like, do most people look at words and just, do you know what I mean? Just look at a paragraph and like, cool, I know what that says. Or do you guys, is there anyone else like me who reads it like they're speaking? Maybe that's why it takes me a while to read things.
You've got one.
Yeah, me and Marilyn. Come on.
I've never heard of that.
So you just look at it. You just do that. Just read. That's wild. But it makes sense, because you get through books quicker than I do. Do you know what I mean? So like, I think my process is probably like 3 times longer than yours.
I think
anyway, I love it. I
think you were saying like I remember you saying the other week, I think it was at Life Group, right? You like break down each word and go, or like break down each word or phrase or sentence and go, okay, what does that mean? Okay, so like, now faith is assurance of what we hope for. Okay, what does that mean? Let's stop right there. Do you know what I mean? And then sort of explore that. And maybe that's why. Whereas I like to kind of just read a chunk and then go, right, what we're saying here, what we're doing here, like, what's the crack? Do you know what I mean? Whereas,
yeah,
that's interesting.
I would say probably my biggest Bible study tip is read what it says. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so what you'll find a lot of the Bible is that we read what we think it says or what we want it to say. But sometimes all that you have to do is read the words that are there.
Yeah, read it.
And then think about it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So like,
it makes sense.
Yeah. I don't have an example now, but maybe we'll do like a Bible study.
Like, if you think about like, now faith is assurance of what we hope for and the conviction of things not yet seen. Like, you just read that on autopilot if you just sort of doing the words, and it kind of just sort of goes, what the heck does that mean? But if you break it down slowly, okay, so now faith is blah, blah, and you start to break that down and go, what does that mean? Okay, what does this section mean? What does that mean? That's what we did that week, a couple of weeks ago, when we talked about faith.
Yeah.
It just makes a lot more sense. You just reading what it says rather than overcomplicating it. Interesting, that.
That's right.
Anyway.
Oh, we got someone saying that someone does both. Interesting.
That's why it's got.
Well, thank you so much for joining us, everyone. I hope that you've enjoyed our short little Ruth session. And if you do decide to read Ruth this week, let us know what you think next time.
Yeah.
Leave us a comment. Let us know what else you found. Maybe something else comes to your mind that we've not touched. We'd love to hear that. Yeah.
And let us know any topic suggestions that you want us to look at, or any books. So obviously here we looked at Ruth, character, book, same thing. So if you want us to do that with anybody else, let us know.
Yeah.
I mean, we'll definitely put it on the list and get to it. So happy days. Thanks very much for joining us, and we'll be back same time, same place.
Bye, everyone.
Next Sunday. Bye.